Hello, welcome to the Vita Animal Health Feline webinar series. We've been joined by the fabulous Louisa Graham, known as Louisa the Vet, to impart her knowledge on a whole range of feline related topics. Vita Animal Health are proud to support education amongst both vets and pet owners. Our products are all veterinary led, and we have created our range to support pets in all stages of life. Quality research-backed supplements to help pets lead a happy, healthy life. So our webinar today is on stress. Louisa is going to give us a fascinating look into how stress affects cats. If you have any questions on both this webinar or our range of products, don't hesitate to send us an email at info@vitaanimalhealth.co.uk or visit our website www.vitaanimalhealth.com for more information. Over to you, Louisa.
Thank you. So welcome to one of my Vita presentations. This one is about stress in cats. Stress is something that we commonly recognise as clinicians, but actually something that is easily missed as pet owners. And it's a really important topic because it contributes to a lot of behavioural and medical issues that is obviously what we then see in clinic. So a little bit of an introduction. My name's Louisa. I'm a small animal vet based in North Yorkshire. I've qualified from the University of Nottingham in 2013. I'm currently a clinic director of a small animal practice. I have my advanced certificate in small animal medicine, and I'm currently undertaking my certificate in diagnostic imaging. So I practice all aspects of GP. And for anybody interested or who has social media, I also do run a social media page, which is Louisa the Vet on Instagram, where I routinely share interesting cases and tips and things. So let's talk about stress in cats. Cats hide stress and pain as well as everything, and that's a protective mechanism. And that's the one thing I want us all to take away from this today, that they really do hide everything. And stress is extremely common in cats, and it really does often go unnoticed. It can manifest in a variety of ways. Behavioural reasons and medical reasons, and we'll briefly touch on those as we go through this PowerPoint. Stress, as we know, if we feel stress, it can affect their quality of life. And actually, sadly, it's a really common cause of pet abandonment and actually electing to have cats put to sleep. We can, unfortunately, and we do, contribute to our pets' stress levels. So it's actually not an unusual thing for vets to be presented with a cat that might have a particular behavioural or medical issue that we believe has been triggered by stress, and owners are struggling and they actually opt for their cats to be put to sleep. So it's upsetting on both sides. So this is a common presentation that we see. My cat is peeing everywhere. Whilst this absolutely can be medical, we know that often this sort of presentation is triggered by stress, and we might see indoor cats that are neutered and they're spraying, and this is due to stress, as well as other things, but it's also associated with stress. And this was a gorgeous boy that was in and out of the clinic for weeks, and he's absolutely fine now. So what could the signs of stress be in our cats? Hiding, being reluctant to interact with us. They don't want to play. They might start being aggressive towards you or other pets in the household. Inappropriate urination or spraying in the house is massive, and that's a common behavioural complication that we see. They might start toileting outside the litter tray, which nobody wants. They might start scratching the furniture quite excessively, which is dreadful at the best of times. They might be reluctant to leave the house because the things on the outside of the house might be quite stressful. They actually then might start to get vomiting and diarrhea, have weight loss, and occasionally you can see cats over grooming with stress as well. So things in our home that contribute to stress, whether we like it or not, having cats in our home will bring every single cat a degree of stress. I have a cat called Oreo. She's mainly indoors. I have quite a large garden that she goes out in. And I'm quite aware that she may succumb to some stress in my household because I have a small person and a dog in the house, as well as the daily busyness of life. So it's important that we all actually acknowledge that our house and lifestyle can be stressful. So what are things that can cause stress? Well, the lack of or competition for a cat's resources, and resources are their food, water, toys, hiding spots, litter tray. Other animals in the household, that's really stressful for them as well sometimes. So for example, multi-cat households, a bit of a controversial topic, but we will discuss that. If they're unable to express their normal hunting behaviour, so obviously cats in the wild would normally hunt for their food, and if we can't sort of mimic that, that can be quite stressful for them because they get bored. Inappropriate handling. So my daughter has been renowned for being obsessed with the cat. Her first word has been cat, and she wants to go over and hug that cat, and that is highly stressful for my cat, and she's not allowed to do it, although that's what I'm trying to teach her to do. So we need to learn to give them space. Changes to routine can be quite stressful for cats. So during the pandemic, we saw a lot of cats with stress-related issues or medical behavioural issues that stress had triggered, one of which was the cat on the previous slide. He was in and out during the pandemic. Moving house or building work, extremely stressful for cats. The noise, the moving everything around, and just being under the weather, being ill can contribute to stress. Going to the vets can be stressful too, let's not forget. So we need to make sure that we're using pheromones. We can provide you with, or you can get advice on these pheromones that you can spray that can calm them down, which is similar to what they produce themselves. We can also discuss giving you some medications before your vet visit, before you travel, that might actually help your cat calm down and be more receptive to be examined, with minimal side effects other than it just sedates them a little bit. It works really nicely. Bring familiar bedding, smells with that cat as well in the litter, in the cat carrier, and often you need to cover the cat carrier as well when they're in the waiting room. A lot of clinics now are becoming ISFM cat friendly, which means that they have a standard of care and facilities that they provide to try and make their facilities nicer for cats. And that might mean that they have a separate cat and dog waiting area, or they give you something to cover over your cat carrier. And absolutely try and keep your cats away from the dogs. If you know, for example, there's a barking dog in the waiting room, just politely ask the members of staff on the front desk whether they can take your cat into the back. So yes, going to the vets can be a bit stressful, but it's really important that they do get seen by vets. We know there's no way around that. So what can we do to reduce stress? Well, we can understand fundamentally our cat's specific requirements. Cats are not small dogs. Their requirements are totally different. Their ancestry is different, and their behaviours are different. So we need to acknowledge that and try and mimic that. We need to realise that cats hide stress and pain very, very well. And it makes a lot of things in cat medicine difficult. And we need to try and anticipate anything that could cause your cat stress in the first place. So this is my cat Oreo. She's got some ladders going up to the table where she sleeps and looks out into the window. So obviously I'm looking after her joints because she's arthritic with the steps. She's got somewhere high to be away from small hands trying to touch her. She's also looking out onto the garden. So while she can go outside if she wants, sometimes it's nice for her to just sit and look outside as well. So we'll go through these points individually, but we need to provide a space for them that's where they feel safe and secure. We need to allow an appropriate number of separate feeding spaces within the house, all in appropriate locations, and that includes litter trays as well. We need to make sure that they've got the freedom to carry out their natural, normal hunting behaviour and predatory behaviour, and that can include things that they can chase, scratch, kick. They get these kickaroo toys. We need to be mindful of our interaction with them, and we need to maintain a respectful distance with them and a respectful bond with them. We know that cats like to be in control. We also need to take into consideration the impact that other cats and other dogs might actually have on them. And then we need to utilise the artificial pheromones. So we need to provide a space for them that's safe and secure. Cats generally prefer to retreat than engage, and this comes down from their ancestry, where they, from the African wildcat, they were solid hunters, so they needed to look after themselves in order to survive and hunt. So they're not really interested in anything of conflict. So make sure that they've got places to hide. They absolutely love boxes, high places. Cats generally love clutter, going under beds, behind boxes, everything. So whilst a clean and tidy house is lovely, they actually need to feel like they can be away and feel safe and secure from somewhere. And they actually like to be able to have in front of them what they can see and have an exit strategy in front and around them. Be mindful of cat flaps. So obviously it's great because it gives them freedom to the outside, but cat flaps can actually encourage other cats to come in. So you might want to consider cat flaps that are microchip entry. Cats will hate and do hate any other cats coming into their household that they've not chosen to live with. It's very, very stressful for them. If you do, and you have the option of letting them outside, I appreciate this can be quite stressful for some pet owners, not appropriate. For example, if you live near main roads, that's not nice, but we've got to acknowledge that being in a house naturally is stressful. They'll probably want to be outside. So if you have got a garden that you can make secure, and you can cat proof them, I've seen lots of posh cat buildings made, try and do something like that. And as I mentioned, you've got to have enough safe spaces per cat that has more than one way of getting in and out. So if you have a multi-cat household, but only one exit and another cat sits near that cat's going to find it stressful walking past the other cat sometimes, particularly if it's a cat that they've not chosen to live with. So we need to allow an appropriate number of separate resources within the household. It's really, really important that we don't have feeding bowls next to each other and cat litter trays next to each other. Cats find that extremely stressful because they wouldn't do that in the wild. Sharing resources is stressful. And again, cats are not going to overtly show you signs of stress. They'll probably do it and they'll tolerate it, but they don't like it. So we normally say 1 litter tray per cat plus 1. So you're going to need roughly 2 litter trays for every 1 cat that you've got, really. And have them in separate areas where nobody's walking through so that they can go and be private. The cats have very strong wee, and if they're feeling stressed, they'll hold on to that wee, and that will make them prone to cystitis as well. Separate feeding areas, always separate litter trays, different locations. Basically separate everything if you can do. And this is why it can be off-putting to have multiple cats if you're following these rules, because then your house is going to be full of lots of different litter trays, feeding bowls, which isn't always ideal. And that's where we've got to think about whether having a multi-cat household is actually the right thing to do. So we need to make sure that they have the freedom to carry out their normal hunting behaviour. And again, this comes from their ancestry. They were solitary hunters. Ideally, they'd like to be outdoors, but if we can try and mimic as much of this indoors as we can do, then that's what we can do. Scratching posts or anything that they're allowed to scratch is great. Toys, feather toys actually mimic prey. Cats like to do that. It's always important that you reward cats if you're using a laser pen or a wand toy by a treat, because in the wild, they hopefully would get a meal. So you absolutely need to mimic the hunting behavior and reward them with their meal. You can also make them work for their food. So something simple that you can do is the inside of loo rolls, the cardboard, you can sort of sellotape them all together and you can put food in the middle, and then they can use their paws to get it out. And that sort of mimics their natural hunting behavior as well. And showing you the picture before of Oreo on the cabinet, which is just behind me, she has a view to outside, which she likes. We need to be mindful of our interactions, to be respectful and to maintain that human-animal bond. We need to be predictable and consistent with our approach to them. We can't just 1 minute be all over them and then ignore them for weeks. Cats like to initiate. We know that they're in control for the most part. And it's really important that when you take on a new kitten, ask about their socialization, because that natural solitary instinct they're born with that. So if you can get these kittens really socialized in the first 8 weeks of life, so normally between 2 to 8 weeks of age, that can really make a difference in a cat that quite likes the human-animal bond and the human interaction, to a cat that really doesn't. And it's actually not unusual for cats just to be sort of hands-off as well. So other animals, we need to be mindful that, again, they're solitary species, and they actually in the wild would choose what friends they live with. Not being aggressive to their housemates, their other cats, does not mean that they're happy. It means that they're probably just tolerating things, and oftentimes they've just learned to share, and they will have a degree of stress. So whilst I can always appreciate how somebody's trying to do the right thing and rescue a bazillion cats, I actually am not an advocate for that. I do think it's very, very stressful for cats, because they won't like doing that, particularly if they're not allowed to then go outside and escape and get away from it all. Signs of a positive interaction are if they start grooming each other, if they sleep next to each other and they play with each other. So if you do have a multi-cat household and they're doing that, then that's really positive. And absolutely, some cats can live in harmony happily together, but there are some subtle behaviours in cats where you can see that they don't. So for example, one cat might come into a room and then the other one leaves. One cat might jump on a bed and then the other one gets off. So again, that comes down to, if you do have a multi-cat house, you need to make sure that they've got separate everything in their own spaces where they can escape. And if you are going to think about multiple cats, maybe adopt a bonded pair like siblings. Pheromones. So it's important that we actually do let cats deposit their pheromones, which is normally when they give a good head boop. They sort of rub around you, their legs, just the sofas, and they like to scratch because that's how they deposit these pheromones. And whilst we don't want them to scratch on our furniture, we need to give them something that they can scratch on then. We can't discipline or blame them for wanting to carry out their normal behaviours. So these pheromones that are secreted naturally, they make them feel comfortable and familiar, and we can actually use synthetic pheromones. So there are things like Adaptil, for example, or Pet Remedy. These are just examples of products, but you can speak to your vets about these, and often they're used in clinics as well, and they can be used at home. But just a little thing on house soiling, we commonly see this. It's mostly a behavioural issue. It can be to do with medical issues. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but there's not always a quick fix to this. And it can be quite upsetting as pet owners, but as vets, that when a pet comes in for peeing where it shouldn't do, we know that there's not a quick fix, and we all have to work together for that and try and manage it. And a lot of the management strategies, as well as other things, include stress management. Even if you don't believe your cat to be stressful, actually, when we ask you questions, they are cats that are living indoors with another cat. You've got building work, it's been COVID. So we just need to be mindful of that, because actually, like I said, it's quite upsetting. It is actually a reason we are asked to euthanize pet cats for doing this. Common condition that we will see is feline idiopathic cystitis. It's a cystitis type in cats. We don't find another underlying reason why, but again, we believe stress is a trigger to this, and it plays a part in the management. So our management is stress reduction. The little guy here, Tommy, he actually presented unable to wee because of this. We couldn't find a reason why. He had no stones, no tumours, nothing, but from the stress, and then the fact that he's a cat and they have really acid wee and he's overweight and an indoor cat. This all contributed, adding in the stress because it was COVID, and the owners openly admitted that his room then became their office. He then wasn't able to wee. He unfortunately ended up having to have quite a major surgery, where, long story short, you turn a male cat almost into a female cat, and he's survived and he's done brilliant. So stress can impact cats quite severely and can contribute to quite a severe life-threatening condition. So it's really important that we address that. So I hope we've all taken something from this. I think we all need to acknowledge, myself included, that our cats can be stressed by the pure nature that we have domesticated them and brought them into our homes. We have to be mindful that they are not dogs, and they have specific requirements that if we can acknowledge and address, we can hopefully get them to live happily and stress-free.
Thank you, Louisa. Another great presentation. Don't forget, if you have any questions or want some further information, you can email us or head on over to our website. Thank you.